I still remember the day that changed everything between us. It was a lazy Sunday afternoon in our shared apartment, the kind where time seems to stretch endlessly before you with no particular agenda. The windows were cracked open, letting in that perfect spring breeze that makes you feel like anything is possible. I was sprawled on our worn leather couch, mindlessly scrolling through my phone, when Alex walked in with that mischievous grin I'd come to know so well over the 2 years we'd been roommates. "Hey, I need your help with something," he said, leaning against the doorframe with casual confidence. That was Alex, always self-assured yet somehow never arrogant. He had this way of making even the most mundane request sound like an adventure waiting to happen. I glanced up, raising an eyebrow. "If it's about the dishes in the sink, I promise I'll get to them eventually." He laughed, that warm sound that always seemed to fill the entire room. "No, nothing like that. I'm thinking of getting a new cologne. The one I've been using feels, I don't know, too familiar? Too expected? I want something different, something that makes people take notice." I put my phone down, suddenly more interested. Alex had always been particular about his scent. For as long as I'd known him, he'd worn the same woody, spicy fragrance, something that had become so distinctly him in my mind that I sometimes caught myself searching for it in crowds, as if my senses were constantly attuned to his presence. "What's wrong with your usual?" I asked, genuinely curious. "I thought that was like your signature or something." He shrugged, pushing himself off the doorframe and walking further into the living room. "I've been wearing it since college. I think it's time for a change. Plus," he hesitated, and I noticed a slight flush creep up his neck. "I have a few dates lined up this month. Thought it might be nice to make a different impression." Something tightened in my chest at the mention of his dates, a feeling I'd become accustomed to ignoring. We'd always been just friends, just roommates. Sure, there had been moments, lingering glances, late-night conversations that veered into territory that made my heart race, but neither of us had ever crossed that invisible line. "So you want me to help you pick a new scent to impress your dates?" I clarified, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Exactly," he brightened. "You have good taste, and honestly, I trust your opinion more than anyone else's. Plus, you'll be honest if something smells terrible on me." I couldn't help but smile at that. It was true. Our friendship had always been built on brutal honesty. "All right, what are the options? Please tell me you didn't buy out the entire cologne section." Alex disappeared into his bedroom, returning moments later with a small collection of sample bottles. "Just a few I picked up yesterday. The guy at the store recommended these based on what I usually wear, but with some upgrades." Let me explain why scent is so powerful in human attraction. It's not just about smelling nice. Fragrances trigger emotional responses, awaken memories, and can create powerful associations. Scientists have found that scent bypasses the rational part of our brain and goes straight to the limbic system, where emotions and memories reside. That's why a particular cologne can suddenly transport you back to a specific moment, or why the scent of someone special can linger in your mind long after they've gone. Alex placed the bottles on our coffee table, arranging them in a neat row. "So what do you think? Should we start testing?" I leaned forward, examining the elegant little vials. "How exactly are we doing this? Are you just going to spray them in the air, or?" I thought I'd try them on, one at a time. Give each one a few minutes to develop. See how it reacts with my skin chemistry. He was already rolling up the sleeve of his light blue button-down, exposing his forearm. I tried not to notice how the fabric stretched across his shoulders or how the color brought out the blue in his eyes. The next half hour passed in a blur of scents and sensations. Alex would spray a small amount on his wrist, wait a few minutes, then lean over for me to smell. Each time he moved closer, I felt that familiar flutter in my stomach, the one I'd been fighting for months, maybe years. The first cologne was too sharp, almost antiseptic. "Definitely not," I said, wrinkling my nose. "Unless you're trying to smell like an upscale hospital." He laughed, reaching for a cleansing wipe to remove it before trying the next. "See? This is why I needed you." Brutal honesty. The second was better, something with notes of leather and tobacco. It was masculine, but in a subtle way. "This one's nice," I admitted. Sophisticated without trying too hard. Alex nodded thoughtfully, making a mental note. "Put that in the maybe pile." By the fourth sample, the scents were starting to blend together in my mind. This one was different though, lighter, with hints of citrus and something deeper underneath. Something that made me want to lean in closer. This, I started, then stopped, realizing I'd moved forward unconsciously, nearly closing the gap between us on the couch. This one is really good. Alex's eyes met mine, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. There was something different in the air between us, something that had nothing to do with the cologne and everything to do with the way he was looking at me. Yeah, he said softly. Let me try something. Before I could ask what he meant, he picked up the bottle again. But instead of spraying his own skin, he shifted closer to me. Can I? He asked, gesturing toward my neck. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was crossing into new territory, the kind we'd always carefully avoided. Why? I managed to ask, though I didn't move away. To test reactions, he said, his voice lower than before. Cologne smells different on everyone. I want to see how it develops on you, how people might react to it. I should have made a joke, should have deflected with humor the way we always did when things got too real between us. Instead, I found myself nodding, tilting my head slightly to expose the side of my neck. Alex moved with deliberate slowness, as if giving me every chance to change my mind. I felt the warmth of his body as he leaned in, heard the soft click of the atomizer, and then the cool mist of the cologne against my skin. His fingers brushed lightly against my collarbone as he directed the spray, and I had to suppress a shiver. There, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. He didn't move away immediately, and I could feel his breath warm against my neck. Now we wait a few minutes, let it settle. The few minutes felt like an eternity. We tried to return to normal conversation, discussing his upcoming week at work, a movie we'd both been wanting to see. But there was an electric undercurrent to every word, every glance. I was hyper-aware of the scent developing on my skin, bright citrus notes giving way to something warmer, something that seemed to blend with my own natural scent in a way that felt strangely intimate. Finally, Alex set down his glass of water and turned to me. Let's see how it developed, he said, and there was no mistaking the intention in his eyes now. This wasn't just about cologne anymore. This was about something we'd been dancing around for longer than either of us cared to admit. He leaned in slowly, giving me every opportunity to pull away. I didn't. Instead, I found myself tilting my head again, offering better access to where the scent lingered on my skin. Alex's face was so close now that I could feel the warmth radiating from him, could see the different shades of blue in his irises. He inhaled deeply, his nose just barely grazing the sensitive skin below my ear. He murmured, and the sound sent a jolt straight through me. That's really nice. Yeah. My voice came out embarrassingly breathless. He nodded, still not pulling away. It's different on you. Warmer. More. He searched for the word, inviting. Our eyes met, and in that moment, all pretense fell away. We both knew what was happening here, what had been building between us for so long. What kind of reactions do you think it would get? I asked, surprised by my own boldness. Alex's lips curved into a slow smile. Well, speaking personally, he said, his voice dropping even lower. It makes me want to get closer, to see if it tastes as good as it smells. The air between us seemed to crackle with tension. This was the moment, the precipice we'd been carefully avoiding for so long. One of us needed to be brave enough to take that final step. Maybe you should find out, I said quietly, my heart pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. For a moment, he just looked at me, as if making sure he'd heard correctly. Then, with agonizing slowness, he closed the distance between us. His lips brushed against my neck, right where the cologne was strongest, and I couldn't help the small sound that escaped me. His mouth was warm, his touch feather-light as he pressed a kiss to my skin. Definitely tastes as good as it smells, he murmured against my neck, and I could feel him smile. Something broke loose inside me then. All the careful restraint, all the times I'd told myself we were just friends, just roommates. My hand came up to the back of his neck, fingers threading through his hair, holding him close. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his eyes questioning. I nodded, not trusting my voice, and then his lips were on mine. The kiss was tentative at first, exploring, as if we were both still afraid this might shatter the friendship we'd built. But then he made a soft, hungry sound against my mouth, and any hesitation vanished. We broke apart minutes later, both breathing hard. The cologne hung in the air around us, now forever associated with this moment, this turning point. So, Alex said, his voice rough, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. I'm guessing that's a yes on this particular scent. I laughed, the tension breaking even as something new and exhilarating took its place. Definitely a strong contender, though I think we might need to conduct a few more tests. For thoroughness. His smile widened into a grin. Of course, we should be scientific about this. Absolutely. I agreed, already leaning back in toward him. And science requires repeated experiments to confirm results. Later that evening, as we lay tangled together on the couch, the TV playing unwatched in the background, Alex traced patterns on my arm with his fingertips. He said thoughtfully, I've been wanting to do that for a really long time. I turned to look at him, taking in the familiar features that somehow looked new to me now. The Cologne shopping? He laughed, pinching my side lightly. No, you idiot. Us. I never knew how to bridge that gap without risking everything. I understood completely. Our friendship had been too valuable, too essential to both of us. The risk had always seemed too great. So the cologne was what? A pretext. He had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. Not entirely. I really did want a new scent. But yes, I may have been looking for an excuse to test the waters. See if there was any chance you might feel the same way. By spraying cologne on my neck. I teased, though my heart was full to bursting with the revelation that he'd been feeling the same things I had. It worked, didn't it? He pointed out, looking altogether too pleased with himself. I couldn't argue with that. Instead, I leaned in to kiss him again, breathing in the scent that would forever remind me of this day, this moment when everything changed. So which one are you going to buy? I asked later, as we were cleaning up the various bottles scattered across the coffee table. Alex picked up the one we'd been testing, the one that now lingered on both our skin. Definitely this one, he said, a private smile playing on his lips. I think it gets exactly the reaction I was hoping for. That was 6 months ago now. Alex still wears that cologne, though more sparingly than before. He says he saves it for special occasions, date nights, anniversaries, moments when he wants to remind me of that first time. And it works every time. One whiff of those citrus notes, that warm undertone, and I'm transported back to that Sunday afternoon when everything shifted between us. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if he hadn't been so bold, if he hadn't found that perfect excuse to cross the line we'd drawn between us. Would we have continued in that limbo of unspoken feelings and careful distance? Or would we have eventually found another way to each other? I like to think we would have. Some connections are too strong to be denied forever. But I'm grateful for that bottle of cologne, for the pretense it provided, for the courage it gave us both. Who would have thought that something as simple as a scent could change everything? But then again, isn't that the power of fragrance? To evoke emotion, to create memory, to transform the ordinary into something extraordinary. Last week, I surprised Alex with a gift, a full-sized bottle of his cologne. The look on his face when he opened it was worth every penny. Later that night, as we lay in bed, he asked me if I ever regretted the shift in our relationship, if I ever missed the simplicity of just being roommates. I thought about it for a moment, about the comfort of our friendship, the ease we'd always had with each other. But then I thought about the depth we'd discovered, the joy of waking up beside him every morning, the way my heart still races when he walks into a room. Not for a second, I told him honestly. Though I do think you owe that cologne salesman a serious tip. Best wingman ever. Alex laughed, pulling me closer. I'll send him a thank you card. Dear sir, thanks to your excellent recommendation, I not only smell fantastic, but also found the love of my life. 5 stars, would recommend. Love of my life. He said it so casually, but the words settled deep in my chest, warm and certain. From roommates to friends to this. All because he asked me to help pick his cologne and had the brilliant idea to spray it on my neck to test reactions. Sometimes the biggest changes in our lives come from the smallest moments. A shared glance, a brush of fingers, the subtle scent of cologne on warm skin, and the courage to finally cross the distance between what is and what could be. Total _char_count, 17,892.